love riding my bike. I love running. I don't care what they think about it. I love it.
At that point, when I knew I was going to win, chills just went up and down my entire body.
I don't believe there are any good or bad foods. Food is food.
I still feel so passionate about getting that record that I'm like, I'm just going to do it.
As an athlete, I was like, what's my story, or what's your story? What can you learn from it? And what can you teach people?
Welcome to the IronWomen podcast. I'm Haley Chura, and I'm joined by Alyssa Godesky. Alyssa, this episode is coming out on Thanksgiving Day in the United States, and I'm curious, what are your plans for Thanksgiving?
Ooh. So for Thanksgiving, I alternate years going to doing my family with my in-laws family. And so that's how we do it. And so this is the in-laws year. So Matt and I are driving to Ohio on Wednesday. He's working like half a day on Wednesday. And then we're going to drive 10 hours and get to Ohio and join the family fun there. And then we'll drive home on Sunday. Thanksgiving always feels like such a short holiday for like getting to family, you know?
I mean, it depends on what you're listening to in the car. What are you podcast people? Are you going through all the eras of Taylor Swift? What is the plan in the car?
Well, it's actually going to be a very hilarious. If anyone sees us driving west from Vermont towards Ohio, you will get a kick out of what you see, because my PT has given me some strict instructions to be chauffeured to Ohio. I am allowed to take a 2 to 3 hour driving stint, but I actually do have to sit in the back seat, which is hilarious, and be able to like stretch my leg out. Because my knee is just, I mean, being in the car is literally one of the worst things I'm doing for my knee at this point. And so 10 hours, 20 hours in the span of less than a week is just really a lot for it to handle. And so, I'll be setting up my chariot in the back seat of the car. And I actually was thinking about this today. We'll be driving a Subaru Crosstrek for those who are really interested in how we're doing it. And I'll plug it into the CarPlay, my phone, for the navigation. And then I was excited because I have a cord that's long enough to stretch to the back seat. So my phone could be plugged in for the navigation on the screen, but then I can still control like music and podcasts and things like that. And I'll be able to, the Eras Tour is like a very good suggestion. We do like podcasts. A lot of times I'll try and find a true crime one or something that we can like knock out the whole thing in 10 hours so that we feel like we're just like, really wrapped into a story like that or something. No audiobooks. That's never really worked for us. But hopefully, the weather holds up and it's just a straight shot. Matt's really good at driving. He's from the Midwest. So I feel like Midwest people always love road trips and are good at them.
Do you bring the dogs?
We are not bringing the dogs, no. So, which I think would just make the travel a lot more difficult and probably longer because you stop more often for them and stuff. So they have a kennel here that they really like. So they spend holidays at the kennel with heated floors and probably like it more than our cold home. So
what about food when you get to Ohio? What kind of meal does the Szymanski, wait, I'm going to say their name loud.
Szymanskis? Yeah.
I said it
Yeah, you got
right?
it. Yeah. So they do like a twofold. So Thanksgiving's kind of 2 days with them. And so you have one half of the family and then the next day, the other half of the family. So, and it's both kind of standard Thanksgiving fare. It's great. Plenty of good food to go around. I think we will try and I have an apple crisp frozen in the freezer that I made a couple months ago. So I think we're going to try and bring that as our contribution, because that will basically defrost as we drive is my thinking, and then be kind of ready to go in the oven for Thanksgiving Day. So
that's also very smart in case like you get there and your knee is really sore and you don't want to be like standing over like island making an apple crisp.
Like mashing potatoes.
Peeling some apples.
Peeling apples. That's very true, right? And then this is actually really, really sweet. 2 years ago, they did like a family competition for the, quote, kids, right? And so they made a series of events from like wood chopping to orienteering course outside the house to a fire building challenge, like you had to build a fire from scratch challenge. And then it was scored, and then you actually got to win cash prizes, Haley. It was like a legit competition.
Whoa.
I know. So this year, the competition returns. And so But with my knee, they rethought the events. And this is so sweet, Haley. The events were just
That's-
released. And this year's competition will begin with a math competition. You do a math test
Wow.
and then breath holding.
Wow.
And then
These are hard. I was like, what kind of math? I mean, I guess you don't know.
Well, so
Is
that
it,
was my thing. I was
calculus,
like, excuse me,
differential
I'm
equations? Are you gonna like draw a rose curve?
Well, I was mostly worried about geometry because I can kind of fake my way through still, maybe, I don't know, probably not calculus, but algebra and stuff I can do still. But geometry, I was like, I got to brush up on sines and cosines and like what that is. And so, but I did ask for a hint on that because I was like, it's been a long time. And it's going to be elementary to middle school math, which still, honestly, if I get a long division problem, like I need to relearn some long division, I think. But and then the hint was to make sure you know what mean, median, and mode is. So,
Okay.
good hint. But so that'll be fun. And then
Okay, so breath holding, that seems
breath holding.
dangerous. That's like someone who's like,
Yeah.
I eyed that apple crisp and I want it all for myself.
The
So
dangerous part is that Matt will be like, let's practice the breath holding while we're doing the drive. And I'm gonna no. You have to relax that's the secret. That's what I told him the other night when we were driving. I was like, no, because to practice breath holding, I have to be relaxed. And if you're holding your breath while you're driving, then I'm not relaxing. So we can't, this is not good. So
okay. What are the other events?
the other events are, so we still can do wood chopping because I can still chop five things of wood. I'll get through that. And then the other one is like, I think I understand what it is. Their driveway's on a slope. And so I think they have like a dolly. And so you're supposed to, the listeners can't see Haley's face is just
This
like
is
laughing.
like,
This is
I'm
like
just
so
like,
intense.
what kind of family? I'm like, this is like, they must have good health insurance in Ohio.
Everyone's gonna be very jealous because I mean this is like so up my alley. And so
Okay.
I think the gist of it is that you're going to have to, it's like Plinko almost, right? Like you have to get the dolly to roll down the hill into like the goal, essentially. Kind
But
of
you're
thing,
not,
I think.
are you riding the dolly?
I don't think I should reread the rules, but I don't think
Okay.
we're riding the dolly. I think
That
it's just
makes
like
a big
a
difference.
dropping. Yes.
Okay.
And so that one is supposed to be like a blind competition, like we're all going to be kept away, so you can't see each other's strategies.
Okay.
But yeah, I think those are the events. So that competition, I'll be able to update everyone on how I did. I held my breath for 90 seconds yesterday, so I felt pretty good about that. And I think if I keep practicing, I can get up to 2 minutes at least. So we'll see.
Breath holding makes me so anxious. I think it's just like all my years as a swimmer and doing that, and I don't like it. Even though I mean I hold my breath, but now I come up before the flags. I like don't do much hypoxic work, but I am anxiously awaiting the results of your Thanksgiving family competition, and I'll put my money on you.
Well,
And
after 2 years ago, I did not have a very strong showing, I have to admit. So I'm probably the underdog, I feel like maybe this year, which is, I like that.
but it was very sweet of them to make sure you could participate in everything.
Yes.
So yeah, work
And
on
Haley,
do some times tables while you're driving.
What about you? Where are you headed for Turkey Day?
Oh, I'm staying here in Bozeman.
Okay.
I have no plans to travel, and which is kind of nice. My parents are here, Cowboys here, and we'll probably just do something fairly casual with more. I think we're more into like the sides this year.
Ooh,
So
yeah. Okay.
I think there might be some like spinach artichoke dip. Like
Ooh.
I can't decide on versions of potatoes, so there just might be more than one version
All
of
the
potatoes.
options? Yeah.
Yes. And then I haven't figured out dessert yet, but there'll probably be a couple of those too. Because
Okay.
we're big on sides and dessert. I mean, turkey is fine. But yeah, no, it just will hopefully be a chill day. We just got a bunch of snow here, so it kind of feels wintry, and but that has like made my life a little treacherous where I'm like, I cannot fall. And so I'm just being
that's
really,
true.
really careful on the ice and protecting my my hand. I would like to protect my wrist as
Well, yeah, your whole arm, really, you should be protecting.
I'm just worried about falling. But yeah, I mean it's actually nice. I have like both PTs on Wednesday, everyone's in town. And so yeah, it's just everything's working out. And I think next week, I mean it will be after we record, I think I get to go back and get my next set of x-rays, which hopefully will mean that I can start like weaning out of the splint and
possibly like putting water pressure on my hand, which, you know, right now I've been kicking with the splint on, but I did get up to 3K of kicking. I did that last Friday.
All without fins or with fins?
Yeah, all
How do
without
you kick?
fins.
Oh my gosh.
I did
Okay.
all without fins. I did use fins this morning because I just wanted to see how it felt on my knee. And it was actually okay. It was fun because you go so much faster.
Yeah.
I don't use fins a lot. Like I'm not a person who really likes fins that much. I just think at this point I've been swimming so long, they kind of hurt my feet and I don't swim enough to really need them. I do advise other athletes to use them quite a bit. So it's good for me to put them on every once in a while. But last weekend last Friday, I did do 3K with no fins and it was a lot of kicking. I mean, I just was kind of like, is this doing much or is it just like making me a little tired? But I'm like,
did you do a like workout style?
I did. I did like 1,000 warm up and then I basically did 4 100s strong on 205 and then 1 easy. And I did that 4 times. But this is long course meters. So I'm a little bit like I would like to be under 2 minutes. Like I should be under 2 minutes, but I wasn't. I needed those extra 5 seconds last week. So I'm working on it. There's my goal.
Yeah.
Be able to like comfortably hold hundreds on 2 minutes long course kicking.
Whew, I think you'll get there. That's impressive.
Thanks. I mean, it made me feel better about going and getting my pancakes afterwards or pancake. I've gone down to 1 pancake, but I think I'm gonna be back at 2 soon.
Yeah. And I mean, also I think 3K of kicking still gets you two pancakes, if anything. So I don't skimp on yourself.
Shocking thing. I think like having a drastic drop in training volume.
Are you just less hungry too?
Wild. Yes. I think it's the surgery too. The surgery like messes you up a little bit for like eating wise, but it's coming back. It has been good. I've been able to ride then the trainer and I actually got hungry on the trainer this past weekend. I was like, okay, thank you. This is more me who's like hungry all the time.
I know.
It was weird, like not waking up. And I mean, I still want coffee when I wake up, but normally like I'm excited, even at like 4:30
for breakfast.
Yes. I'm like, I want breakfast. And now I'm like, all I want is coffee. And I'm like, who am I? Like my whole existence is totally different. But I also went to the gym for the first time in 6 weeks, which I've gone to PT at the gym, but so it's a little bit different to actually go to the gym. And it was inspired by Nicole Falcaro sent me a shirt and it says like down bad, check, crying, check. And then it says at the gym and there's no check. And I was, you know, these are Taylor Swift songs or song lyrics, which maybe it was really cute shirt, but I was like, she's right. I am down bad crying, not at the gym. And so I was like, I have to go to the gym. So she inspired me. I'm allowed to do some abs on my own. And today I just discovered like I can do a plank without putting like pressure on my hand. So I'm like, okay, there's like some, you know, it wasn't my strongest workout, but it felt good to be back. So thank you, Nicole, for inspiring me to get back to the gym. She said she would send me a Sharpie so I could check that last box.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That's awesome. No, it's nice to, I feel like, do something like that that's kind of in your routine a little bit more and like just give you a little bit of normalcy, even if you just go say hello to the like desk people that you normally would see and stuff like that, right?
It has been really good. I think getting back into a slightly more normal routine, even just stopping at a coffee shop on the way home from the pool, I can't believe how much I've missed that. And my fancy coffees and like you said, going to the gym, seeing people at the gym. Although I went and I was like, I don't recognize any of these people. I was like, what happened?
Everything has changed.
I mean, I recognize the people who work there, but no, I'm like, who are all these people? But no, it's been really good. The only problem is I usually bike commute to the gym. And so the last couple of times I've walked, which just takes a little bit longer, but honestly, the walk is probably good for me. And I was able to catch up on If We Were Riding last week while I was walking to the gym. So, you know,
all your friends were there then. Yeah. Well, Haley, are we ready to get into the mailbag question this week?
Yes. We've had these jam-packed interviews and we've missed a couple weeks of mailbag question answering, but I'm excited for this one. And if anyone does want to write in, our mailbag is ironwomenpodcast@gmail.com.
So this question comes in from one of our super fan male listeners, and thanks, Dave, for the question. And Dave, spoiler alert, Dave's actually a friend of mine. He's coached also by Hillary. So we've known each other for quite a while through Biscay coaching. And Dave had a question about me coaching my husband, Matt, and about just coaching my partner, what that's like. Is that hard? That sort of thing. And so it's a good question. I don't think a lot of people sometimes realize that I do coach Matt, and it made me stop and like think about some things as in terms of that, because, well, first, Haley and I were also talking about it, and there's definitely several pros who are coached by their partners, and that sort of thing. And so, I don't think that this question was kind of asked in the sense of like me as a woman coaching my husband, right? But definitely a good thing to consider. Like, do we think it's just weird because I'm the female coaching my husband? Kind of self-check on that. But, taking that aside, go
Laura
ahead.
Phillip, Ironman world champion, coached by her husband, but also Nikki Bartlett, who was 5th at Nice at the Ironman World Championship, coached by her wife. So we can, go every
direction
we can
with, like, the
analyze. We can
combinations.
analyze,
Yeah, totally.
but yes, it was a good like question in that sense. Like, does Philip Sipe get asked this question about coaching Laura Phillip? Does Bex Milnes get asked this question about coaching Nikki Bartlett? I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't asked either of them.
Yeah. But, going to what it's like, is it difficult, that sort of thing. I will say I did not at first want to coach Matt. I was a big proponent of him getting a coach, but he kept being like, well, you should just coach me. And I was like, no, you should just get a coach. And he was like, well, you just coach me. I was like, no, you should just get a coach. But then finally I was like, I will try this for a short term, but if it doesn't work, then, you're getting a different coach. Because I was worried that, just, I don't know what I was worried about. I guess I was worried that like
impacting
our like actual
your
relationship. Yeah. Because there are times for sure where when you coach an athlete, like you'll probably see things, not eye to eye on stuff. And as the coach, sometimes you have to say like, well, just, try, let's just put some trust, try it my way. Right. For a little bit. And it can just, when it's your partner, it could lead to different dynamics. But as I was thinking about it, I mean, I still coach him, so it does work. And I think we both enjoy me coaching him still. And I think it works for a few reasons. One of them is that, well, I guess the biggest reason overall is like trust in that relationship. And Matt has been with me through all 3 of my FKTs, which are probably like the hardest things I've done in my life physically. And I, was with him when he set an FKT running 105 miles on the AT through Shenandoah National Park, which was like super hard for him. And so I think when you see each other through really hard things, and I think this could have been, if we had gone through like really hard life circumstances and stuff like that, I think that trust could have been built. But I think that going through like some really hard things and learning to really trust each other has helped that kind of part of the thing that I was worried about of like, will he just trust me to like do, this plan for a while to see if it works, that sort of thing. And I think when you see each other go through really hard things, you're there for each other through that. I think that trust kind of inherently comes, and that helps a lot in a coaching relationship. I mean, I also think trust is really important, even if your coach is not your partner, right? And so, or if you're, if you're just coaching a client, I think they need to trust you, you need to trust them. And so that is why a lot of times coaching athletes for a long period of time, I think really works, because you have such a deep level of trust in that relationship. And then, I was thinking about it more, and I think that it's hard to really say, like for Matt and I, why it works, but I tried to talk it through with him a little bit. And Haley, have you seen the new Alex Honnold movie with Tommy Caldwell and him? And it's on Hulu or in Disney, I think. And so, it's Alex Honnold and Tommy Caldwell, these like really, good friends, and they are tackling this like new hard climb, and they go a little bit into kind of their relationship of like why that climbing dynamic works to be, together doing these hard things. And I was like, Matt, it's like we're like Tommy and Alex. Then of course we kind of got sidetracked on this tangent of like, well, who gets to be Alex and who's Tommy, right? And I don't think we ever figured that out. But I think that, I think it's somewhat rare to have that kind of just trust and like honestly fun with each other and willingness to experiment. I mean, Matt is definitely one of the athletes that I do experimental things like with in his training, and to see how that works. And it is because he lives with me. So I do get to have eyes on that experiment every single day, which I think is a unique opportunity and one that I appreciate. And there's certainly things I've had him do that I will never have other athletes try. And there's things that I've had him done that like I have implemented into other training plans and things like that. And so I do think that, you know, it certainly would not work for every relationship or every, you know, even friends. Like I'm hesitant sometimes to coach some friends, right? Because it's just, I think you have to have that, some levels of trust, levels of communication that are very strong. And so I think that's why.
What about like just the power dynamic of you being his coach? Like what you say goes, but then say he's like angry about something else, like you know, didn't clean up the kitchen or something after you made your apple crisp.
Yeah.
You know, does that ever happen? Is there ever any like struggle in that?
No, and I do think that's part of where, as the coach, right, I do have to understand that like I can't bring my annoyance at him for sleeping in and skipping a workout into like our relationship, right? It's just I would do the same thing that I do with an athlete, where if they are training for a 5K and then Matt sleeps in and misses all of his Tuesday track sessions, when we have our debrief of why you didn't hit your 5K time that you wanted to, I would suggest that potentially it's because you were sleeping in, right? And missing workouts. And so again, Matt like rarely sleeps in and misses workouts, but I definitely have
I
learned.
just picture Matt. I just picture him just always sleeping in.
And then
Poor
the
guy.
debrief, yeah. No. So, but you know, I think for us, it actually happens more like the times I think it gets most interesting for me and my perspective is when we have a lot going on, right? There's like a driveway project we want to do. The house is like, I have a lot going on, so I'm not doing a lot of like house things I might normally try to keep us up on. The dogs have kennel cough, right? Like, you know, those life things sometimes just add up. And then he's at, you know, he has a pretty standard engineering job. And so I know like full well what his availability for workouts is. And so I think sometimes I've definitely had like inner dialogues with myself of like, can I give Matt an off day so he can finish the driveway project? Because that needs to get done, you know? And so, and again, with that, we try and talk about it and say like, you know, you need to balance this with that, right? Like, what are we going to do? And so, you know, that's a matter of, I think, probably people, even when their coach is not doing that, right? You look at the goals, you say, okay, like this is going to get put off till 2 weeks. And then I need that week of unstructured time to like get some of these other things done, right? So communication and trust goes a long way. But I think he also is very, you know, he certainly trusts what I tell him to do. He thinks, you know, he wants to do it. He doesn't question that kind of thing. You know, he'll give feedback and we can have talks about it like any athlete would. But by now he knows kind of my methods and that sort of thing. So I think it works.
What about when you're coaching him on wood chopping and then you're going to compete with him against him?
So that is good. I mean, he was like, he already said, Haley, he was like, my dad's probably going to give you the easier logs and I'm going to get the harder ones. Which is probably true. But, you know, we'll see on the day. I mean, he knows I'm the better chopper. That's like an established fact.
You didn't give him extra wood chopping in his training plan this week.
No,
Or you're like, no,
we
you
have
don't
the
need
driveway
it.
project going on.
You're like, you don't need the wood chopping. Also, it's just math, whatever. Don't even bother holding your breath. Just give up.
I'll be in the back
Sabotage.
seat on the drive, like being like the mode is the least frequent number of you like used.
No, I think it's an interesting topic of conversation or question and probably, like you said, communication, and it's probably not for everyone. And I think you could probably have a very healthy relationship without a coaching relationship, but it's admirable that you can have
the coaching relationship. Wait, which one of you was Alex and which one of you was Tommy?
I mean, it's my podcast, so I'm Alex and he's Tommy, but
I would definitely be Tommy. I feel like just the hand situation at the moment.
oh, that's true.
He
you
does
guys,
a
yeah.
lot. I
I
actually
mean,
think
he could be
does a
like
lot.
inspiring for you, right? I mean, yeah, he
Yeah.
does he does certainly more than I do with my 10 fingers. And so that's, yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you to Dave for that question and interesting topic of conversation.
Yes. And Haley, we have an interview for everyone today. Are you ready to find out who it is? Did I miss anything else on our list? Are we ready
No,
to
I
get
think
to
we're
it?
ready.
Okay.
We are
All right.
ready.
So this week I talked to Deborah Eckhouse. Deborah is a 38-year-old first-year pro, and I had such a good time talking to her. So she became a pro after being a two-time age group world champion in 70.3. And so she talks about kind of her whole decision at that turning point of taking her pro card. Then we go into her first season this year as a pro, which has been very successful. And then how she's balancing life as a pro triathlete with her unique job situation. And she also has a very supportive local community that we get into a little bit as well. So we'll hear from Deborah after a word from our sponsors next. Hi, Deborah. Welcome to the IronWomen podcast.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
And our listeners, we were just talking, she does go by Deb and Debbie. So if you see her on the race course, feel free to use any of that to cheer for her. You'll probably hear me changing between variations as we chat here. And so Debbie, as we were scheduling this, we are recording this on a Sunday. And when I got in touch to schedule the interview, you were describing how you work the graveyard shift, right? As a supervisor in public safety. And so the Sunday time was actually best because you had 2 overnight shifts, I think, Friday and Saturday, right? Like leading into this, which is super unique. So I just kind of want to start off by saying hello and asking you a little bit about that. Can you tell us more about who you are, I guess, outside of triathlon then first?
Sure. Yeah, and it's funny because 2 days of graveyards is actually very short for me. Usually I'm like 4 or 5 days straight of graveyards, so it was like a shorter week, which is great. But yeah, I work as a graveyard supervisor at Skagit 911 in Mount Vernon, Washington. So it's a little bit of everything different every day. We're a consolidated center, so we dispatch for law, fire, EMS. And as stressful as the job is, I think, the actual drama of the job is probably harder than actually dealing with life and death on the phone. So it's a bit of a mix of you never know how the day is going to go, how short staffed we are, all that stuff. So I started that about 12 years ago, and I started triathlon 5 years ago. It was just before COVID. And that was what actually was like my catharsis for this job, because with the lack of sleep, with the dealing with high stress, it's more like the high stress, low frequency. You get especially for where I am, we're not constantly having drive-by shootings and all that. It's more of we might be very slow and then we'll have the bridge collapse, or we've had active shooter and all those things in our agency. So different ways of just dealing with the stress has actually swim, bike, run helped me get through that. So it started as a goal as a child to do an Ironman one day, and then finally just decided this is about the right time to do it while trying to couple with a full-time job. So
Wow. Okay. So we definitely will talk more about kind of how you came into the sport a little bit, but currently now then with this job, what does that mean for your training? So right now, you're probably in taper mode. You're getting ready to race Ironman Cozumel in just about a week. And so, but in a standard training week for you, what does it look like? How do you balance kind of coming off of a night shift, right? And then that, and then finding some normalcy, because daylight is is good for training, right? I imagine.
Exactly. Yeah, it's actually, that's why I choose graveyards, because at my work, we're on 12-hour shifts. So it's either a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. or 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And being in the Pacific Northwest, it gets dark pretty early, especially through the winter, spring and fall. We're just dark all the time. So I chose graveyards because when I have a half sleep, that's a 4-hour or 5-hour sleep, which is pretty typical, then I'm awake during like those prime daylight hours, especially in the summer. So, I'll be up at 2 p.m. and that's prime time to go swim in a lake and ride my bike up a mountain and all those things, and then go to work at 6. Whereas if it was reversed, I would have to go to work first at 6 a.m. and then try to work out at like 6 p.m. somewhere with some sort of energy left of the day. So I make it work in a sense of I have to be okay and patient with how my body feels through the work week. So if I have multiple days in a row of bad sleep, and I know that I can't do something with pickups or I can't do a really big block workout, then I always try to just prioritize like, okay, tomorrow you do have a swim and a run, but if you're feeling like this, we're going to prioritize the swim or we're going to prioritize the run. And there's been times before too where I just feel like garbage and I just have to like cut out anything that has like real structure to it, just go into zone 2 and just do a long zone 2. So I've been pretty good about knowing my body and what I could and can't do and where I should push and where I shouldn't when it comes to during my work week. And then on my week ends, like when I have a day off, is when I stack the really big stuff, like the 5-hour ride, the long run, big brick workouts, all that stuff. So it's worked pretty well for, for a while, even doing, especially becoming a pro this year. It's like I have higher expectations and it's really, and it's hard to not get discouraged when I'm missing workouts because of my real job, my night job. But it definitely, you have to be humble and just say like, I'm like giving it everything I can. And how do I feel coming off of it and going into a race mode? So yeah.
Do you do anything in particular? So like this week going into Cozumel, like will you do anything? I think you're traveling tonight, right? So you'll be out there quite early. Do you do anything to like adjust to a quote normal time schedule with sleep, or do you find that like your body will revert to it pretty easily? Like, is it, I don't know. I could almost see it being advantageous, right? For like race week and being ready to go, right? On like after travel and, subpar sleep after travel. Maybe that's an advantage for you then.
I I do well on low sleep because you know how no one ever sleeps before a race night. Like I'm so used to it when I have 4 hours of sleep, and other people are like, I only slept 4 hours. I'm like, I slept 4 hours. Yay. But I actually, because on my weekends, I do swap my sleep back to sleeping at nighttime. So I am really, I mean, I know it's not the healthiest thing for a body, but I still do it to myself where I'll swap my sleep going into a weekend. So like tonight I have a red eye. I'm going to sleep for the 4.5 hours on the red eye. And then I'm sure I'll be fine to even once I get into Cozumel, just like jump on my bike and go on a run and fall asleep at a normal time. So I love getting to race locations early because I just love to hit every part of the course that I can. My favorite thing.
Yes, the course recon is super, super important. And my last question about this, sorry, I am fascinated by 12 years of this shift life. And so do you feel like I think you're 38 now, right? So you started doing this and when you were 26 or so. And so do you feel like that your ability to handle kind of the swapping of schedules has changed as you've gotten older?
Yes and no. In some ways, I'm pretty good at just knowing my body, I think. Especially after starting triathlon. It's like you really learn the ins and outs of like how strong you are, how much energy you have, and what you're capable of. But in a sense of like getting older, it's like I have to be more respectful to I don't want to get sick. I know that like I only really started even monitoring. I don't even know if I really follow up with the HRV status stuff earlier this year. And I try to like understand when it's low, when it's high, what it actually feels like. But there's so many times that I'm on 4 hours sleep 3 days in a row and my HRV is just going to be low like all week long. But I just understand how I feel and that's how I take it into effect there. So I think as just getting older, I think I just have to just be very careful. But otherwise, I think I handle it. I think I handle it okay.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you have your system all worked out and it's clearly working. We'll talk a little bit about results in a little bit, but getting into kind of the sport of triathlon, I want to talk a little bit about your background. So I think as a kid you were running and biking, cross country track, that sort of thing. And then I read that you did kind of long distance cycling with your dad. So kind of was your official background in sport? And then was it your father who like introduced you to the fact that triathlon even exists, or was he a pure cyclist?
He was pure cyclist.
Okay.
He
Okay.
he got me into cycling. I was always like I tried all the sports as a kid, but anything with like ball hand-eye coordination, I failed at just miserably. So I got into like cross country and track pretty early because I just realized like, hey, I can run and I can go forever. And I wasn't a good sprinter, but I was just good at just going for a really long time. And then my dad started cycling around the time I was like 16 years old. And every time we would like get together, he wanted to actually like go on these bike rides. And the first time we did Seattle to Portland, which is like a 206-mile ride, he was on a mountain bike and I was on this like cross steel frame bike. And I remember we were at like a pit stop and there was people in front of us just going, "Did you see that father-daughter team on the mountain bike and the cross bike just going right up Puyallup Hill?" And we were hooked after that. We did Seattle to Portland every year. My family got like a real bike and so did he. But yeah, it just like stuck with me because, you know, you fall in love with it so easily. And he taught me a lot of the things like that kind of just innately I do now, like my cadence and how I push and pull on the pedals and, like how some people are just, you know, they were taught swimming as a kid and they can do so many things that I have to consciously think about all the time. That's me in cycling, I feel like, is that I don't have to consciously think about some stuff because it's just in there. It's in the brain.
And so
Yeah.
when was it that triathlon became even on your radar just to do, you know, as an amateur for fun?
Around like the time I started cycling with my dad, I was like setting all like the bucket list goals for one day to do, and one of them was to do a full marathon. And then the other one was if I complete a marathon, then one day I want to do a full Ironman. And I had no idea how to swim. So I knew that like whenever I came to this goal that I wanted to do one day, I was going to have to get in the pool and learn how to swim, which wasn't until I was, 6 years ago when I started triathlon. So
And so, okay, so then was it just kind of a matter of time and you like had that Ironman goal on your bucket list in the back of your brain, and then finally, the years are ticking by and you're like, all right, I guess sooner, like I better start crossing this one off, especially because the swim was going to take some time, right?
Exactly. Well, I kind of always had it in my mind, and I knew like one day I will get there. But around that time I started triathlon, I had some coworkers that were encouraging me to sign up for some races, like local running races, like a 5K and a 10K. And I hadn't done any racing since like before my marathon that I did, and like I think that might have been 2018. Not 18, I'm sorry, that was a long time ago. 2008. It was like around right after high school kind of deal. But so I started doing these like local run races and then realized, wow, I've really missed racing and I've really missed like training for something. And so then I like put a half marathon on my list again. And then after that, that's when I started saying, you know what, if I can do this, then I can actually start working towards that goal and I want to try triathlon. So that was in 2018 that I got a membership at a gym that had a pool and I started to teach myself how to swim then. Yeah.
Okay. And so
I know, long
no.
progression.
And my co-host Haley and I are always very inspired by the adult onset swimmers, essentially, right? Who like are teaching themselves how to swim competitively at adult ages. And so what was your strategy? How did you go about doing that?
Oh, I wish I had planned a little bit better. Maybe got a coach. But I just did YouTube videos. I was in the pool, like trying to figure out how to get my head in the water. I could be in the water anywhere as an adult and not drown, but it was mostly like doggy paddle and, some version of like the breaststroke. But to freestyle and actually like learn, breathing, bilateral breathing and how I put my hands in the water, all that came from YouTube. And then I attempted my first triathlon about 8 weeks after learning how to swim.
Okay.
And the footage is awful. Like I do not know when I watch it. I mean, I'm just like dipping my head in to make it look like I know what I'm doing.
And was this a sprint triathlon that you started with then?
Oh no, I went with full Olympic. I decided to
Okay.
do a
Okay.
1500-meter swim.
Yeah. And so at that point, how long, like, did you wait, I guess, to kind of pick an Ironman and really go for that goal until the swim got to a certain level? Was that part of your thinking, or was it like scheduling and just life and everything else that, and you were going to swim that distance whenever you were signed up?
I actually was trying to I was way more optimistic than I thought. Like I was going to do an Ironman that year. And while I was like training and trying to build up to it, and then I did my first like open water triathlon like 4 months later. And then my first half Ironman was Coeur d'Alene, which was 6 months after learning how to swim. And when that swim took me 52 minutes, I realized I think I need more time. And that was about the time that I was like, I'm at that verge where I'm like, I know it's not the cutoff, which is like 110 for a half, but when you're doubling distance and stuff, I'm about that, cutoff time if it was a full Ironman. So I decided I needed to figure out how to swim, figure out the triathlon game a little bit longer before I put a full Ironman on my bucket list. So I did give myself time after that. And there wasn't like you have to do it by a certain time. I just wanted to just keep going until I came to that realization. I think I'm ready now.
Okay. And so in terms of then kind of figuring out the swim a little bit more, figuring out triathlon how did you go about that? Is that did you train with a group? Did you get a coach at that point? Did you just keep watching more YouTube videos and say, I need to keep practicing?
At first it was just keep practicing and I went from, like well, not barely, but I was still doing pretty well and I noticed progress in all my times and stuff. But then I started like winning local races and I think I podiumed like fourth in my age group at Eagleman, like right after COVID was bringing back races. So I was getting up there where at least I knew I was getting better, like comparatively to myself. And it was around the end of 2021 where I said, I think I'm ready now to put a full Ironman on my list. And that is when I got a coach finally with a local friend and decided, hey, like this is something bigger than I've ever done. When I trained myself for my marathon, I did it horribly by running way too much and injuring myself. Like I need to figure out like the smart logistics behind something this big. Um, and if you've seen all my times and stuff, you know that I've been like up and down. My times are still not super great when it comes to swimming. But I've done a lot of work on it and it's still something that's it's going to be my weakest leg always, but it's still something that I'm committed to getting better even to this point, even in going into second year pro.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, and I think I think any rookie pro, any amateur, any triathlete, period, right, has that kind of thing that they're just continually working on. And so it's awesome that you decided to take the leap, right, and be like, you know what, I'm going to keep working on this while I race professionally next season. And so at what point, so 2022, it sounds like you had a coach, you were working towards that Ironman goal. And then at what point were you like, maybe I also want to race as a pro. Like I'm getting pretty good at this.
Actually, the thought of going pro never crossed my mind. It's really strange to how I actually did end up taking my pro card because when I started that 2022 season and all of my training had changed and I definitely I used to go like all high intensity just because of my work schedule and limited time, and then learning it's more important to focus more on like the low intensity stuff and only trickling the high intensity stuff. The March 2022, I went to Puerto Rico for the race. Had been canceled twice for COVID. And it was my first ever. I won overall amateur at that race. I had never, like I said before, was fourth in age group at Eagleman, like never a top 10 position ever. So that was just like, wow, there's potential now. And then my first full Ironman was about 4 months after that at Mont Tremblant, and I finished overall amateur female there. And I would have finished seventh with the pros that were racing. I would have won money. That's when everyone was like, "You would have won money." So that's when it started to become on my radar a little bit of like, "Oh wow, like maybe this is something that eventually I could do." And doing that there, I actually did. That is like qualification for your pro card at my first full Ironman. And then a couple months later, I qualified for Kona. So then I went to Kona. And then 2 weeks after that, I did the 70.3 Worlds where I won my age group at Worlds. So it was like a pretty good, like going from maybe, winning local races and barely even podiuming at Ironman events to like now this actually feels like I'm getting somewhere. So I had qualified a couple times for my pro card in that 2022 season, but I still didn't want to take it. Like I just knew my swim is still like I'm going to be the last out of the water. And it's my first time ever, breaking a tape, all that stuff. So I gave myself like the full year of 2023 of this is where you're going to decide whether or not you want to go pro. And I had a really good season through 2023 as my last year as an amateur. I broke the tape at 70.3 Galveston in April. And then I finished second overall at Ironman Nice in the following June. And then I won my age group at 70.3 Worlds again in August. So that's when I knew I let everyone know I was like, okay, I've qualified for my pro card. 2024 is going to be my year that I will take it. But it wasn't like this goal like I grew up with or anything. It's more of just, again, like even from the beginning in 2018 when I started triathlon and just seeing the progress of like how far I can push my body, how good I feel without injury. And every year, steadily getting better. And seeing that through 2022 and then especially through 2023, it was like, what's the next step? Like, I don't want to be just a top age grouper anymore. At this point, I'm going to have to throw myself in the deep end. And even if my swim isn't quite where I want it to be still, let's go for it and like do that next challenge. So that was pretty much the only reason why I took it.
Yeah, I mean, two-time age group world champion, overall amateur a couple of times as well. Like, I think it's clear that the talent was there. And so can you talk a little bit about your approach to racing as someone who sees the swim as, as the weakest of the three, right? And so
Yeah.
what kind of mentality do you approach each race with? And has that changed as you've started racing in the pro ranks?
For sure. I knew I would still be the slowest swimmer going into a lot of, my first pro races. But to actually experience it was really hard at first. The first, I DNF'd in my very, very first one, which was Indian Wells a year ago. I was having bike issues when I dropped it off and I knew I should have got it fixed. But my first actually successful pro race was in, Pucon last January.
Mm-hmm.
And to go is an out and back bike. So, being the last out of the water, I didn't see another female for a long time on the bike. And it was kind of discouraging of like, I couldn't really hold my power. I kept thinking like, this is just where I'm going to be. I'm going to be alone the whole time. There's not even any age groupers nearby. You're just completely alone on this road. And eventually by the end of the bike, I started to catch all the ladies. And this was with pushing less power than I had planned. I had planned on being around 220, 230 watts average, and I was probably around 210. Like I was pretty low. And I caught 5 girls at the end of the bike. And so I put myself from being last position to being about 8th by the time I got off the bike. And then the run, again, I caught a few more girls. And by the end of that race, it wasn't like my best race ever, but it was a really good experience to remind myself that if I don't get discouraged on the bike, I will catch people. Just because I know where my bike is and I know where my run is. And that was even with struggling with like a glute injury for the first half of this year. But so by the time I was getting into the next few races, especially by the time I got to Peru at the end of April, I actually got out of the water with a female, so with another girl. So it was great to be like, hey, I might be last, but I'm not like last by 5 minutes or whatever it is. So then once I got on the bike, and that one has 3 loops, so you see people a lot sooner. I pushed 230 watts for that one, had the fastest bike time, and I got off the bike in 3rd position, which was the best I had done in a pro race so far at that time. Again, I was still struggling with a glute injury, so my run started to fall off by about the 2nd or 3rd loop. But that was probably the most promising, knowing that I have some potential if I just keep my whole mentality in the game. So now going into it, I'm like, you know what, as long as I can, I'll do my best in the swim. I've done a lot of work since Lake Placid this year, so I'm really excited to see what I do in Cozumel, but I'm still okay if I come out last out of that water. I think I've got a way better mental game on if I can just hold the power I want to on the bike, I will catch girls and sooner than I might think. So
And what kind of things have you been doing since Lake Placid? Has it been heavier volume of swimming? Has it been, a specific swim coach that you've been working with? What have you kind of jumped into with that?
I've been self-coaching since May now.
Mhm.
Ever since the glute injury, I just was like, I need to get myself on track. I know my body. I've learned so much over the last few years that I actually canceled all the races I had from Peru until Lake Placid just to get that glute injury back on track. And then by the time I got to Lake Placid, I had the fifth fastest run in the Pro Series race, and I was like, I'm finally running at my potential again. But my swim was the worst swim I had ever had at Lake Placid. It was swim skin for pros and wetsuit for non. And
And it can be that swim is brutal if you're going to be caught in the age group
yep.
loops. It's
Oh, it's
brutal. Yeah, it can
horrible.
be really brutal.
It's brutal. And the thing is I with a lot of the training I've had over the last few years, I've been given a lot of workouts that always involved like a pull buoy, fins, like just a lot of toys. And I always relied on those for my speed, I think. And then races, the best races I had were always with a wetsuit, or wetsuit and salt, like, anything that gives me the max float. So since Placid and my horrible swim, I was reaching out to another pro that I've met this year, and she's amazing. But she was swimming the exact same times I was last year, and now she's swimming like so much faster this year. Like she's getting out of the group with a group of girls. So I reached out to her and I said, hey, like something is wrong with me. When I take the wetsuit off, when I don't swim with a pull buoy, I sink. And so she suggested to completely take like the pull buoy out when you're doing your freestyle swimming and band your ankles, which is, if I don't know if you've tried that or anyone listening has tried that.
Yeah, my coach is a big fan of band
experience.
only. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I wish I had known this a long time ago because at first you can't even make it 25 yards. Then like maybe you can make it 50 yards, but you're sinking. After just like a few weeks of doing this solid, my hundreds were faster, my body positions were faster. I barely kick anymore. I think I have really big thighs and I was just really overcompensating with a heavy kick to keep my body position proper. And I was sad that the swim was canceled at Ironman Canada because I was doing my pre-swims faster than I've ever experienced with way less effort. Like I used to be out of breath all the time. I'm not saying it's like the cure all because I have a lot to work on still, but it's made a huge difference. And I'm actually, the reason why I'm so excited for swim in Cozumel is just because it's non-wetsuit. Like I want to see what I can swim without a wetsuit. Can I keep on with some girls? Can I hold on to some feet? But the banded ankles, if I can give anyone a suggestion from this one, go banded ankles, remove the pull buoy as much as possible. Stop relying on the float.
Yeah, from what I swam growing up, but not competitively or anything like that. And so, like I had the basics of swimming down, but I had a long way to go as well when I entered pro racing to kind of be able to be in the mix. And band only it's like a staple of my swim program. And so it definitely does its job. It's not fun. It's
not fun.
And you will not like gain swim friends because no one's going to really want to swim your workouts doing it, but it is worth it. So I'm excited to see what you do in Cozumel then. And you touched on Placid. So Placid was after kind of like a mini break in your season, right? You got there and you finished 14th. It's a good solid day, right? Returning to racing there. And then you turned around pretty quick, to have that day in Canada, your first pro podium in what is that, 9 months of pro racing, right? So what did that day feel like for you racing in Canada and getting on that podium?
It was amazing. It was amazing. I didn't tell that many people I was actually racing that one just because of the quick turnaround from Placid, my tri bike actually broke a few days after I returned from Placid. A really important screw in the fork just snapped in half. So that was in the shop for like solid month. I decided like, you know what, I'll make the last minute decision where I actually race or not. And I just went.
Did you have another bike to train on, or was it a road bike you were training on, or like an older tri bike?
Yeah, I was doing just I got my road bike out, which I hadn't
Okay.
ridden in 2 years. And I
Yeah.
fixed it up a bit. I changed the cassettes, or sorry, the chain rings on it to a little bit bigger because I've definitely increased over the years. And I just went out and did like all my favorite long hill climbs, mountain passes. All my runs turned into just my favorite, like highly technical trail runs, which I never do during a dry season, just for risk of injury. And I just got back to like loving everything that I did and still building, like having a good volume, but a completely different like mindset going into Ironman Canada. And then I said, if I get my tri bike back in time, I'll make that last minute decision whether I race or not. So obviously I did go. And then when they canceled the swim, I still didn't want to like tell people because I felt like the pressure would be on like, all right, Debbie, there's no swim. This is your race. And granted, if there was a swim, I can't say that maybe I would have been third, but I
Did
am
you do a
grateful
good
for the
job
system.
of like because I feel like not you were self-aware enough to know that like there would be external pressure maybe, right? Like if you felt like you were
Yeah.
telling people and they were expecting, did you feel like you did a good job? Do you have any tips for people who like did you keep the pressure off of yourself or were you like, no, that was a mess, but I didn't want extra pressure?
Yeah. I didn't want the extra pressure. And I also think I was just really calm going into that
Mm.
race. I've always wanted to race Penticton. And it was the last year it was going to be there. And I just decided it hasn't been the same normal training going into it. It hasn't like, it's just going to be different and I'm going to be okay with that. And I'm just going to enjoy the entire day. And that's exactly what I did. Like it was never done a time trial start in an Ironman. And that was just fun. My friend, Danny, I think you guys had her on just a couple months ago, right after Chattanooga, but
Hmm.
she was right before me in the send off in the time trial. And she was fourth in that race too. So we were very close to each other the whole time in that race. And it's just so great to be around like such amazing women. And it was a beautiful day. And yeah, I think I just never lost discouragement in that race. It just felt fun. The whole day was great.
And then, Debbie, I think after that, at some point when I was stalking your Instagram, I think you took like something that most triathletes would never have done. I think you took a real vacation. Like, I think
I
you went
did.
to Italy without a bike. I mean, it appeared that maybe you didn't have any training plans or anything like too structured while you were there. Was that
Yeah.
hard for you? Do you like, can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I do think it would be super hard for a first year pro to go and do that, but I think it's great.
Yeah, it was the first time I've done a vacation like that in a long time. And I got a lot of messages from people saying, "What are you racing? What are you there for?" So it was really fun to just like do nothing. There were moments of like, oh my God, I missed my bike, or oh my God, like there was one resort that actually had a lap pool and I got some swim in. And when I'd be like snorkeling, I'd get some swimming in. And I try to do a couple days of like structured runs, but most of the time it was just like wake up for a sunrise run and spend the rest of the day like hiking and beach lounging. And it was good. I think sometimes your body just needs to just disconnect. I love triathlon. It consumes my life. And then also it's nice to remind yourself that there is other life out there besides
Yeah, that's
it.
awesome. That's awesome. And in your everyday life, you are in Bellingham, Washington, I believe. And so
Yeah.
you're actually like one of your kind of sponsorships is to be the elite athlete ambassador to the city of Bellingham. And so I think your job is maybe associated with the city of Bellingham. So maybe that kind of got you a foot in the door. But can you talk a little bit about how that came about? Like, are there responsibilities that come with that?
Oh, it's a pretty cool program. A few years ago, the owner and my friend of Pacific Multisports, he does all the timing through like a lot of the local events, a lot throughout Washington, but definitely everything through Bellingham. Started this. It was just an athlete ambassador program, and the way they described it was if you live, work, or play in Bellingham, then you have the ability to apply. Um, and then what they did for these, like this was like the first beta year a couple of years ago, where they will or they'll pay you back, reimburse you for your races up to about $550. And so, of course I applied because I know him, I know everyone in Bellingham who's, big athlete. And they had about 11 people that first year. Um, And then I just every year I was a part of that. And then when I was going pro, I reached out to the same friend and I said, hey, like, I don't know if I still qualify for that program or not because I have, I'll have these other responsibilities, but I'm actually looking for sponsorships now and curious if you know any, like even local in Bellingham that I could reach out to. And so he told me that he's always had this plan where he wanted to create an elite program where they'll fund you and you be the representation of the city. And he has funding also through this Bellingham tourism. Have you ever been to Bellingham before?
I
This
have not,
tiny
but
little corner.
I've coached an athlete there before, and it sounds amazing. Like all the places
It's,
they run and like their photos and stuff from there. And yeah, it sounds like
yeah.
an athlete's dream.
I mean, whether people are afraid of Washington because of the rain and cold, Bellingham has everything. And I feel like it produces every type of athlete. There's like hardcore canoers, kayakers, mountain bikers,
Swim
cross
runners.
bikers, swimmers.
Yeah.
That's huge. Like every athlete possible comes from Bellingham. Trail runners, ultra runners, the local actually she is amazing that we have a ultra runner here who actually just set the world record for 50 miler
Oh, wow.
um
Okay.
out at I can't remember the name of her race, but it was out in
Her name's
Idaho. And yeah,
Courtney something,
yes,
right? Correct?
you got
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. But that's just that literally is we train like I can go on my way to work, I can go for a 2 hour trail run and get 3,000 of vertical climb in. When I'm training for hilly races like Ironman Nice or when I did for Placid or Canada, I can go up to Mount Baker, which is one of the most beautiful rides that you can do. Or when the pass opens over Highway 20, you could get 100 miles in and a 10,000 feet climb of a ride, and it's just gorgeous. So we're pretty lucky for where we are, and this fact that City of Bellingham is using that as part of their tourism grab to say like, this is what people do here. If you're athletic, you can come here and you can do every sport. So they are the ones who are helping back this fund as well. And I love having Pacific Multisports and Bellingham Experience on my kit because I'm really proud to just say like this is where I'm from and this is where I train and this is why I am a strong athlete because I have everything.
Yeah, no, I mean, that story gives me goosebumps. I love that the support of the community is there. I think that definitely just is unique, right? And it means
Yeah.
a lot to the athletes. It says a lot about the community there. And so, I was thinking about all the kind of meccas for triathlon and other endurance sports. And it was like Boulder, I've heard Boise, I've heard Bend, and now Bellingham. And I'm like, man, this
Yeah.
is like something with the bees, right?
Maybe it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Debbie, I have to ask because I know you mix in some trail running and races with your standard triathlon season. So have you considered X-Tri at all? Are you looking at any of those in your future?
Maybe. I'm a bit of a wuss when it comes to like I can't say that because I haven't really done it, but mountain biking is what scares me the most, I think.
Okay.
Just worried about like I've seen some people get injured and come out of it with some pretty bad stuff, like hitting your head or something coming off of a bad route or something. And I trail run, so it's not like, when I went from road to trails, it wasn't quite as scary. But I would love to eventually maybe.
Or maybe something
I always
like
said though, like
a,
if I
go ahead.
I was just like, if I didn't triathlon, I would probably trail run, ultra run. Be getting into some rugged runs, that's for sure.
Yeah, I feel like maybe Norseman or something could be in your future because then you get the swim, the road bike, and then a mountain run, right? Like
Yeah,
that could be for you for sure.
I'd be down with that. I was actually looking next year at like what are the more rugged races as well that still incorporate a road bike with a trail run, and I'm like saving them to my little list of like maybe these are ones I'll sign up for.
Yes, yes. And what about the big picture, keeping focus on Ironman 70.3? Do you have a favorite between those two distances? Do you kind of you said you're self-coach. Are you looking to get a coach or do have you thought about next season's plan or are you just like, get me through Cozumel, Alyssa, don't ask me about anything else?
I actually have a lot of plans. I think eventually I will try to find the right coach. it's hard again with my schedule and stuff. But my goals in life are I'm working right now to get my certification through USA Triathlon to become a coach myself. And what I'm using is this time as my self coach is being my own guinea pig, like training myself towards things. So I mean, I got myself to Placid, I got myself to Canada, and then even like right after Canada, I went and did the Mount Baker Hill Climb bike race. And I'm not, like just specifically a race cyclist where you can draft and stuff. And I got myself brave for that one and did a really good job. So I'm hoping I can keep like learning and the errors of my own ways. And then one day other folks will want to do the same, and we'll see what kind of future there is there. But I think
Yeah.
with the distances, with that
Yeah.
question, it's hard because I feel like I'm the healthiest and strongest when I full Ironman train. But there is something so great about like when I trained for Lottie for the 70.3-year-olds last year. That was the first time I actually had 70.3 focus race. Because even going into Galveston, even going to Puerto Rico, the other ones that where I broke the tape, those ones I was strictly focused actually on my full Ironman months out. But when I actually focused on Lottie, that was the best 70.3 I had ever had, best run, best bike. So it's kind of hard to say because I think I just always focus on the long one. So they're both
Yeah,
fun
well,
as long as you're
I
training
think
right for the right one. They're both fun.
yeah, I think whatever you choose to focus on, we'll be excited to cheer for you, and definitely, keep things focused on Cozumel. I think our listeners will definitely be cheering for you through that swim, and then as you get onto the bike and the run, we're excited to see kind of how is this the last race of your season? Do you have anything else after this?
Yeah, I plan to I'm trying to set some race calendar of next year, but right now it's really just focused on I'll get through Cozumel, definitely go through a good off season, really just focus on that swim. And getting back to the basics of stuff, because with the glute injury I had this year, I think I just fell off the ball of like I used to be really good at low heart rate running, but I stopped running with a heart monitor. I was just focused on getting healthier. So even since like Italy, that's all I've been doing is trying to get back to the basics. And that'll be my goal through this off season is bringing my heart rate back down, bringing my power back up, and just fixing everything. And then it'll be, let's set some goals like later on going through February and beyond.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. Debbie, thanks so much for taking time to tell a little bit about your story. We're excited to cheer for you this weekend and whatever, comes next for you in 2025. I'm sure it's going to be some big things. So thank you.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thanks so much to Deborah for coming on the show. And Ironman Cozumel was last weekend. She was there. Unfortunately, she did not finish. She posted on her Instagram that her body just wasn't cooperating. It didn't feel really right at all on the bike. So she did pull out of the race. But Deborah, you've had such a good season. We're wishing you all the best, just recovering, getting home from Cozumel, all of that, and hope you can kind of see all the good in the season. We're cheering you on for 2025. And one thing that I don't think we explicitly said in the interview, we talked about her schedule of working like 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Haley in her job, but we didn't quite get into the exact specifics of the fact of where she works.
Right. Our show producer, Ella Natitian, has met Deborah at a few races, and she's like, oh, she works at the graveyard. And I was like, yeah, graveyard shift. Like, yeah. And then she's like, no, at the graveyard. And I was like, wait, she works graveyard shift at a graveyard? And that's what
I
it
mean,
sounds
someone's
like.
got to do it, right? Yeah. So super unique. I love that. I think that makes her just her story. This is why I love to do the podcast. You get to find out such cool stories like that about the women who are out there racing.
Yeah, it's very cool. Enjoy your off season, Deborah. And Alyssa, safe travels to Ohio and good luck in that family competition. Remember, you don't get to do it again for 2 years. So give it your all.
That's true.
Except for maybe the breath holding, like stop before you get your
Just 99% on that one.
Yeah, keep that one at 99%. And don't get on the dolly. No, you've been all that time getting that knee healthy. Do not get on the dolly. Not a good technique. But anyway, have a great Thanksgiving, Alyssa.
Thanks, Haley. You too.
You've been listening to the IronWomen podcast hosted by Haley Chura and Alyssa Godesky.
IronWomen is a production of Feisty Media and is edited by Lydia Russell and produced by Ella Natishan.
Head to livefeisty.com to find more podcasts, stories, and fresh perspectives.
Thanks for listening.